What if the absence of sex isn't just about the body, but about the evolution of the soul? What if what you call loneliness or lack of passion is actually the way your spirit is being refined through silence, emptiness, and moderation? Carl Jung once said that every form of energy we repress doesn't die, but transforms. So when a person lives without sex, that raw creative force doesn't disappear. It turns inward, begins to carve new paths in the psyche, demanding expression through dreams, impulses, and spiritual awakenings that few understand. There is always a price for purity, and that price is the shadow. Because when you deny the body, the soul begins to speak louder. This is not a moral story, it's the spiritual price of not having sex. A transformation so profound that most people will never be able to handle it. There is a law in nature that Jung understood better than most. Energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be transformed. If you feel that this message resonates with a deep truth you already knew, and you want to follow this path of self-discovery and inner power, your first step is simple but powerful. Subscribe right now and turn on the notification bell. By doing so, you are sending a clear signal to the universe. I choose awakening. I choose to be conscious. I choose mastery over my own energy. It's a commitment to your evolution. Jacobo Grinberg used to say that all stagnant energy becomes corrupted. Life only thrives when something is moving. Your breath, your blood, your emotions, your thoughts, and yes, even your money. But believe me, if I tell you to pay attention to how you live, how you exist, it's because you should do it. That's why the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Gustav Jung declared, energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be transformed. Conscious celibacy is not an act of denial, but the mastery of redirection. It is taking that energy and forcing it to move toward a new destination. When you stop expressing sexual energy through the body, that force doesn't vanish into thin air. It doesn't disappear like smoke. It goes somewhere deeper. It sinks into the underground rivers of your psyche, looking for another outlet, somewhere deeper. Underground rivers of your psyche, looking for another outlet. That's where most people get lost. They think abstinence is about control, about willpower, about saying no to the flesh. But Jung knew the truth. You're not stopping anything, you're redirecting everything. Sexual energy is raw, it's primitive. It's the same force that makes flowers bloom and wolves howl under the moon. It's not just about pleasure or reproduction, it's about creation itself. And when you deny it the usual path, it becomes a flood looking for cracks in the dam. Some people channel it into art, others into obsession. Some get angry, some trust in God, but it always moves, always transforms. The question is, into what? Jung called this process sublimation. But don't let the clinical term fool you. Sublimation is not a peaceful and gentle change, it's alchemy. It's taking the heat of desire and forcing it through a different vessel. Imagine a river that has been flowing in one direction for years, and suddenly you build a wall across it. The water doesn't stop, it rises, floods the banks, finds new channels, new routes, sometimes carving through rock and soil in ways that reshape the entire landscape. That's what happens inside you when sexual energy is denied its natural release. Most people are terrified of this transformation because they don't understand it. They feel the pressure building, they feel the heat rising, and they think something is wrong, they think they're going crazy. But Jung used to say, don't worry, you're not going crazy, you're waking up. Because that energy, when it turns inward, starts knocking on doors you didn't even know existed. It stirs the unconscious, activates the shadow, brings dreams that feel more real than waking life, and creates a tension in the soul that demands resolution. But here's the dangerous part. If you don't understand what's happening, that energy will destroy you from within. It will turn into neurosis. It will turn into compulsion. It will turn into a fire that burns without purpose. Jung saw this in his patients over and over again. People who thought they were being virtuous by denying their sexual nature, only to find themselves consumed by irrational fears, violent fantasies, or spiritual delusions. The energy doesn't disappear. It simply went underground and turned into something else, something darker, something out of control. That's why the mystics and monks who truly mastered celibacy were not passive. They weren't holding themselves back. They were simply warriors of the inner world. They knew that sexual energy had to be faced with awareness, with discipline, with a sacred purpose. They turned that fire into prayer, into meditation, into visions of the divine. They didn't suppress the energy. They transformed it. They gave it a new form, a new language, a new direction. And that is the key. Transformation requires intention. It requires awareness. Without that, you're just a pressure cooker without a release valve. Think about the artists who created their best works during periods of celibacy. The writers who poured all their unfulfilled longing into poetry. The inventors whose obsessive focus came from redirecting energy from desire to discovery were not saints, they were alchemists. They took the raw material of sexual hunger and turned it into something that could outlast the body, something that could touch eternity. But this didn't happen by accident. It happened because they understood, consciously or not, that the energy had to go somewhere, and they chose where. Now, if you live without sex and you don't feel anything, that's a different problem. That's not transformation, that's disconnection. That's numbness. I would say that you've isolated yourself from the source because sexual energy is vital energy. It's the same current that runs through your ambitions, your creativity, your will to exist. When you're truly absent, you become a ghost. You move through life without presence, without fire, without desire for anything at all. But when it is present and redirected, you become something completely different. You become a force. So the question isn't whether you have sexual desire. The question is, what are you doing with it? Where does it go? Is it transforming into something greater, or is it rotting in the basement of your unconscious, turning into resentment, bitterness, and despair? Because energy never dies. It only changes form. And the form it takes depends entirely on you. The moment you close the door to physical desire, something else opens up, and it's not always beautiful. Jung warned us about this. He said that every part of ourselves that we deny doesn't just disappear. It goes into the shadow, and the shadow is patient. It waits. It watches. It grows stronger in the darkness. And when you stop feeding the body, the shadow continues. It starts to demand attention in ways you can't ignore. The shadow is everything you've pushed down, everything you've been told is wrong, dirty, shameful, or weak. It's the anger you never expressed, the lust you pretended didn't exist, the jealousy you swallowed, the violence you kept locked away. And when sexual energy has nowhere to go, it becomes fuel for the shadow. It makes those hidden parts of you come alive. It gives them power. And suddenly you're not just dealing with a lack of sex, you're dealing with a psychological uprising. This is where people start having intrusive thoughts, fantasies they can't control, dreams so vivid and disturbing that they wake up sweating with their heart pounding, wondering what kind of monster they've become. But Jung would say, you're not a monster. You're just getting to know parts of yourself that you've ignored for too long. The shadow isn't evil, it's simply unconscious. And when you starve the body, you force the shadow to rebel. Most people run away from this. They think that if they ignore it, it will go away. They double down on discipline. They pray more. They fast. They distract themselves with work, with noise, with anything that keeps them from facing what's coming up inside them. And the shadow doesn't respond to denial. It responds to acknowledgement. It wants to be seen, it wants to be acknowledged, and until you do, it will haunt you. Jung believed that the path to wholeness required integrating the shadow, not destroying it. That means looking at the parts of yourself that you've been taught to hate and finding a way to make peace with them. Not acting on every impulse, but understanding where those impulses come from. Not becoming a slave to desire, but also not pretending that you're above it. This is the razor's edge. This is the work that most people are too afraid to do. When the body stops, the shadow awakens. And what you do with that awakening determines whether you evolve or collapse. Some people use it as a gateway to deeper self-knowledge. Others let it consume them. The difference is awareness. The difference is whether you're willing to face what has been buried. When you deny the body its natural expression, the unconscious doesn't stay silent. It speaks, and its language is dreams. Jung spent his whole life studying this language, decoding the symbols that arise from the depths when consciousness refuses to listen. He discovered that sexual energy, when it has no outlet in waking life, becomes the fuel for the most vivid, most disturbing, and most transformative dreams a person can experience. These are not just random images. They are messages. They are warnings. They are invitations to see what you have been avoiding. People who live without sex often report dreams that feel more real than reality. Dreams in which they are chased by wild animals. Dreams in which they drown or fly. Dreams full of strangers who feel intimately familiar. Dreams soaked in desire, violence, or terror, and they wake up confused, ashamed, or scared. But Jung told them, pay attention because the dream shows you what your waking mind refuses to see. It shows the energy that has been dammed up inside you and how it is trying to break free. The unconscious doesn't think in words, it thinks in images and feelings and stories. And when sexual energy is repressed, it takes on archetypal forms. It becomes the lover you never had, the beast you're afraid to face, the shadow figure lurking in the corner. These aren't just random fantasies. They're the way the psyche tries to restore balance. Because the unconscious always seeks balance. When one side of life is denied, the other side compensates, and it compensates through dreams. Some people dream about having sex with people they've never met, people who don't even exist. Others dream about taboo scenarios that horrify them when they wake up. They feel guilty as if they've done something wrong, as if the dream itself were proof of their corruption. But Jung understood that dreams are not fantasies. They don't follow the rules of morality. They follow the rules of the psyche, and the psyche is amoral. It doesn't care about good or evil. It only cares about balance, about integrity, about bringing to light what is hidden. That's why the analysis of dreams was so important to Jung. He knew that dreams were a direct line to the unconscious, a way to see what the ego refused to acknowledge. And for people who live without sex, dreams become especially powerful. They become the stage where all the denied energy plays out in symbolic form. The person who dreams of fire might be experiencing the heat of an unexpressed passion. The person who dreams of water might be drowning in emotions they can't process. The person who dreams of being chased might be running away from the very desire they've been trying to escape. But this is what most people miss. These dreams aren't punishments. They're not signs that you're failing or falling apart. Actually, they're signs of life. They're proof that the energy is still there. It's still moving. It's still trying to find expression. The worst thing you can do is ignore them. The worst thing you can do is wake up, shake them off, and pretend they didn't mean anything. Because when you do that, the unconscious becomes stronger. The dreams become more intense. The symbols become more violent. The psyche will do whatever it takes to get your attention. John believed that If you could learn to work with your dreams, you could transform the energy that was trapped within them. You could take the raw material of repressed desire and turn it into self-knowledge, into creativity, into spiritual insight. But this required courage. It required sitting with the uncomfortable images. It required asking, what is this dream trying to tell me? What part of myself am I refusing to see? What energy am I not allowing to flow? Some people keep dream journals during periods of celibacy and discover patterns they had never noticed before. They see the same symbols appear over and over again, the same numbers, the same emotions, and slowly they begin to decode the language. They begin to understand that the dream of the strange seducer is not about wanting someone else. It's about wanting to integrate a part of themselves that they have rejected. The dream of violence is not about becoming violent. It's about the rage of energy that has nowhere to go. The dream of the sacred temple or the divine figure is not just fantasy. It's the psyche pointing toward transcendence, toward the higher purpose that the redirected energy is meant to serve. This is where the spiritual dimension comes in, because when sexual energy is truly transformed, dreams begin to change. They become less chaotic, more symbolic, and start to point toward meaning, toward purpose, toward something beyond the personal. Jung called these big dreams dreams that not only reflect your individual life, but connect you with something universal, something eternal. And people who walk the path of celibacy with awareness often report having this kind of dream. Dreams that feel like initiations, dreams that feel like visits from something greater than themselves. But you don't get there by accident. You don't get there simply by forcing your way through desire and hoping it goes away. You get there by listening, by paying attention, by treating your dreams as sacred text, as the voice of the soul trying to guide you through transformation. The dream language of repressed desire is not a curse, it's a map. And if you can learn to read it, it will show you exactly where the energy needs to go. If you feel you need guidance to decipher this inner map, to understand the archetypal language of your unconscious, you need the right tools. You need the wisdom of the great masters of depth psychology and spirituality. I sincerely encourage you to take that leap. Try Audible today. You have a 30-day free trial to dive into dream analysis, Jung's work, or deep spirituality. Use this resource to consciously work with your dreams. The knowledge is available for you to channel that inner fire. The link is waiting for you in the description. Here is the fork in the road. This is where everything splits. When sexual energy is denied its natural outlet, it turns into a wildfire. And like any fire, it can do one of two things. It can heat your home, or it can burn it to the ground. Jung saw both outcomes in his work. He saw people who channeled their celibacy into genius, into art, into spiritual breakthroughs that changed their lives forever. And he saw people who fell into a spiral of madness, obsession, and self-destruction. The energy is the same. The difference is what you do with it. The creative fire is what happens when you take that raw sexual force and give it direction. You don't suppress it. You don't pretend it doesn't exist. You acknowledge and feel it, then pour it into something meaningful. This is what the great artists did. This is what the monks did. This is what anyone who has created something meaningful out of suffering did. They took the hunger, the longing, the unbearable tension of unfulfilled desire, and transformed it into something the world could see. A painting, a symphony, a book, a vision, a life that burned brighter because the fire had nowhere else to go. But this path is not easy. It requires discipline. It requires focus. It requires the willingness to sit with discomfort and not reach for the easy escape. Because the sexual urge is powerful. It's designed to be powerful. And when you deny it, you're left with a huge amount of energy with no clear place to put it. Most people can't handle that. They crack under the pressure, fall into distraction, into numbness, into depression. Or worse, they go down the second path of inner chaos. Inner chaos is what happens when energy has no container. It's what happens when you repress desire without giving it a new form. The fire doesn't go out, it simply spreads. It turns into anxiety. It turns into rage. It turns into paranoia. It turns into compulsive behavior that doesn't make sense but seems impossible to stop. You find yourself obsessed with things that don't matter. You find yourself looking for fights for no reason. You find yourself unable to sleep, unable to concentrate, unable to feel anything except a low-grade sense of dread that follows you everywhere. And he called this psychic inflation. It's when the unconscious floods the conscious mind because there are no boundaries, no structure, no way to channel what's coming up. And people in this state often feel like they're losing their minds. They have intrusive thoughts, they have irrational fears, they feel disconnected from reality, and the worst part is that they don't know why. They don't connect the dots between their celibacy and their inner turmoil. They just think that something is wrong with them. They believe they're broken, but they're not broken. They're just drowning in unprocessed energy. That's why intention is so important. That's why you can't just stop having sex and expect everything to be fine. You have to know why you're doing it. You have to have a purpose. You do it because you're afraid of intimacy. You do it because you hate your body. You do it because you think suffering will make you holy. If your reasons are rooted in shame or fear, the energy will become toxic. It will eat you alive from the inside. But if your reasons are rooted in purpose, in vision, in the desire to transform that energy into something greater than momentary pleasure, then you have a chance. Then the fire becomes fuel instead of destruction. Jung believed that creativity and sexuality were deeply linked. He said that both came from the same source, the libido, the life force, the raw energy of existence itself. And when you block one, you awaken the other or suffocate both. There's no middle ground. Either you rise or you collapse, and the decisive factor is whether you're willing to do the work. Whether you're willing to face the fire, feel its heat, and consciously direct it towards something meaningful. Think about the difference between someone who stops having sex and becomes bitter, resentful, and obsessed with what they're missing, versus someone who stops having sex and becomes more focused, more motivated, more alive with a purpose. The first person is being consumed by the fire, the second person is wielding it, and the only difference is awareness. The only difference is whether they are aware of what is happening inside them and whether they are willing to take responsibility for where that energy goes. It's not about morality, it's not about being good or bad, it's about power. Sexual energy is power, and like any power, it can be used or it can be wasted, it can build or destroy. The question is, which path are you on? Are you channeling the fire into something that will outlast you, or are you letting it burn you from the inside out? Because energy doesn't care, it will do what energy does, it will move, it will transform, and if you're not directing it, it will direct you. If you've made it this far in the video, you've shown the awareness and integrity needed to embark on this path. I sincerely congratulate you. Your will is the key. Comment, I choose creative fire, if you're willing to transform desire into purpose and loneliness into essence. There is a loneliness that comes with celibacy that no one talks about. It's not just the absence of touch, it's not just the empty bed or the quiet nights, it's something deeper. It's the loneliness of walking a path that almost no one else understands. It's the isolation that comes when you realize you're doing something that separates you from the normal rhythm of human life. And Jung knew this loneliness well. He called it the loneliness of individuation, the loneliness of becoming who you truly are, even when that means being separated from everyone else. Most people avoid loneliness at all costs. They fill their lives with noise, with people, with distractions, with anything that keeps them from feeling the emptiness. But when you choose celibacy, whether by circumstance or by choice, you're forced into that emptiness. You can't escape it. You can't numb it with a physical connection. You have to sit with it. You have to feel it. And this is where the initiation begins. Because loneliness, when you stop running from it, becomes a doorway. It becomes the space where the soul begins to speak. Jung believed that true spiritual growth required separation. He said that before you could connect with something greater, you had to disconnect from the collective. You had to step away from it. The noise, the expectations, the comfort of fitting in. And celibacy forces that separation. It makes you different. It makes you other. And in that otherness, something profound happens. You start to hear the inner voice you've been drowning out your whole life. You start to feel the presence of something beyond the physical, beyond the human, beyond the temporal. That's why every spiritual tradition has some form of celibacy as part of its path. Not because sex is bad, but because there are certain truths you can only access through solitude. There are certain depths you can only reach when you are alone. And solitude, when consciously embraced, becomes the crucible where the soul is forged. It burns away everything superficial, strips you down to what is real, and what remains is either emptiness or essence. People who live without having sexual relationships for prolonged periods often describe feeling like they live in a different world from everyone else. They see their friends fall in love, get married, have children, and they feel like they're watching from behind glass. They hear people talk about desire, about passion, about the excitement of new relationships, and it sounds like a foreign language. And this distance, this sense of not belonging can be unbearable. It can make you question everything. It can make you wonder if you've made a terrible mistake. But Jung would say, this is exactly where you need to be. This is the desert. This is the dark night. This is the place where the ego dies and something else is born, because loneliness strips away all illusions. It shows you who you are when no one is watching you. It shows you what you're made of when there's no external validation, no physical comfort, no distraction from the rawness of excess. And if you can survive that, if you can sit in that fire without running, you come out changed. The mystics understood this. They called it the via negativa, the path of denial, the path of stripping away everything until only the truth remains. And celibacy is a form of that path. It's the denial of physical union to discover spiritual union. It's the sacrifice of earthly connection to find cosmic connection. And it's brutal, it's lonely, it's painful. But for those who walk it consciously, it becomes the most meaningful thing they've ever done. Jung spoke about the self, the deep center of the psyche that exists beyond the ego. And he said that the journey toward the self is always a lonely journey, because the self is not something you find in another person. It's not something you find in pleasure, comfort, or security. It's something you find in silence, in solitude, in the moments when everything external is stripped away from you, and you're forced to face what is internal. But this is what most people don't realize. Loneliness doesn't last forever. It's not a permanent state. It's a phase. It's a passage. And on the other side, there's a different kind of connection. Not the connection of bodies, but the connection of souls. Not the connection with one person, but the connection with everything. People who move through the loneliness of celibacy often report that they feel more connected to life than ever, more connected to nature, to beauty, to the sacred, to the quiet presence that runs through all things. This is the hidden gift within loneliness. That's why it's an initiation and not just suffering. Because when you stop trying to escape from it, when you stop resenting it, when you stop wishing it were different, something changes. Loneliness becomes solitude, emptiness becomes spaciousness, and silence becomes a language you finally understand. So maybe the real question isn't, why does God deprive some people of sexual desire? Maybe the question is, what are you becoming in the silence? What is being forged in the fire of your solitude? Because the truth is, most people will never know. They'll run from it their whole lives. They'll fill the emptiness with bodies, with pleasure, with anything that keeps them from facing what's really there. But you're different. You're walking through the door that most people are too afraid to open. And on the other side, you'll find either nothing or everything. The question is, are you brave enough to find out which one it is? You've crossed the threshold. You've faced the fire of energy and loneliness. Now, the next crucial step is to understand how that energy shapes your relationship with reality and abundance. Don't stop here. It's the map you need to see how the same force we've talked about manifests in your material life. Click on the link to continue your awakening. Transformation awaits you.